Morning everybody, Silvolt here, not back for a Transformers review, going to be doing something a little different today. Now, long-term subscribers of mine may remember a few years ago, well, probably about 2 years ago now, I did a video story of something called The Haunting. And to those of you who haven't seen it or don't remember it and want to see it again, I put a link to it in the video description, so whichever side it's on. That's a dog nose, by the way. And that video was basically a retelling of an old film called The Haunting. So I thought I'd do, just for a change, I'd do a review on the actual film, The Haunting. Now this is on the original version, not the 1999 remake version, which I'll probably get to in a bit. Now then, the film The Haunting was made in 1963 and directed by Robert Wise. To those of you who don't follow or don't know classic films, a lot of these names, in fact I'd say all of these names are going to just go whoosh. But anyway, and it had a collection of well-known actors at the time and people who went on to do very good films, especially Russ Tamblyn. We also had Richard Johnson and Julie Harris and Claire Bloom, all of whom were quite well-known actors. You know, at the very least they were B-list. At the very least they were B-list actors in the 50s and 60s. Though at that point we didn't really have B-list actors and A-list actors and C-list actors and Z-list actors. So. And the film is based quite closely on the book The Haunting of Hill House, which was written by a horror author called Shirley Jackson. Shirley Jackson was a very prolific. I mean, in the 1950s, Shirley Jackson was the Stephen King of her day, or rather, it was Stephen King as Stephen King was to the 1980s and 90s. You know, so. And she wrote some very, very disturbing novels, very good horror novels, including another one that was also remade into a rather brutal film called The Lottery. The Lottery gives a very good insight into the darker side of human nature, of which Shirley Jackson seemed to have actually quite a good understanding of. And the film The Haunting follows on quite closely to the book. There's only a few name changes and not an awful lot of difference in between them. Now then, the film focuses mainly around 4 characters. So I don't know why I'm doing 8. 4 characters. You have Russ Tamblyn as Luke Sanderson, you have Claire Bloom as Theo, you have Richard Johnson as Dr. Markway, and Julie Harris as the principal character, Eleanor. Now, Dr. Markway, who is the bit that who is his opening lines from the film The Haunting that I referenced in the story, well, that I quoted in the story, video that I did, is a paranormal investigator. And he investigates a house called Hill House. And he invites a load of people to join him for his paranormal research. And he's invited them because they've all had paranormal experiences that have happened to them. Only 2 agree to come, or only 2 follow, Eleanor, Nell, and Theodora, Theo. Now then, The Haunting, a 4th person joins them, Luke Sanderson, who is the nephew of the current owner of Hill House, and he's basically there as you could almost say a control point for an experiment, because the one thing that Dr. Markway's experiment doesn't have is he doesn't have a focal point. But anyway, these 4 people go to the house, and it's a very creepy house. And needless to say, things quickly start happening, and they seem to be focusing around Eleanor. They focus around Nell, who gradually goes more and more balmy. She gradually goes more and more insane as the film goes on. You find out that Nell has had a very repressed life. She's been caring for an invalid mother. She's treated virtually as a slave by the sister that she lives with. And so what she does is she escapes into a fantasy persona of herself, where she, you know, she makes up the fact that she's living in this beautiful little apartment that she's decorating one spread at a time, and she's very happy. when in actual fact she sleeps on her sister's sofa and is very unhappy. She develops an attraction towards Dr. Markway, who through, he doesn't do it deliberately, but he neglects to mention that he's married. When Nell finds this out, it really does send her a little bit overboard. Now you could argue that Nell's seeing all this in her head until Luke finds the writing on the wall. Welcome home. Or come home. No, welcome home. Welcome home, Eleanor, written on the wall. And this, of course, sends her even more demented. Theo seems to have some form of understanding about what's going on in the house, but she's psychic. Also a lesbian, if you like to read between the lines. I mean, they don't really make it very obvious. I mean, for those of you thinking, ooh, lesbians, awesome! Nope, doesn't happen. Doesn't happen. So, there we go. The haunting becomes more and more intense and more intently focused around Nell, to the eventual point where Nell stops being scared of the house and wants to stay in the house, and she develops the idea that the house wants her there. The house doesn't want her to leave. And it all comes to a head when Dr. Markway's wife shows up. And Dr. Markway's wife is not a ghost hunter, she doesn't believe in the paranormal, she's no Derek Acorah, she's an out-and-out skeptic. That is changed quite violently by the end of the film. As is the other skeptic's point of view, Luke Sanderson, played by Ross Tamblyn. And towards the end of the film, Nell has really gone off the deep end. She has gone utterly insane. But whether it's her own delusions finally coming to the fore, or whether it's because she's finally found what she wanted, which was to be accepted somewhere, to find a place that's called home, and now that she's got what she wanted, she can't handle it because she didn't get it in a way she ever foreseen. It's open for debate. It's open for debate exactly what it is that drives Nell mad. Incidentally, Nell is not the only person that was driven mad by the house. The companion who inherited Hill House was also driven mad by the house. The film culminates anyway with Nell dying. I just ruined the ending, of course, for you, but do apologise. In the same manner that the wife of the builder, of the guy who built the house, dies, crashing into a big tree. Okay? Now, that's basically some idea of the plot. I've pretty much just given the entire plot away, but it's a film review, so it's kind of daft if I sit there and go, well, the film's about. Anyway, onto the cast. The film has got some, as I've already said, some quite good names in there. And one of the reasons why The Haunting is such a great film is that, unlike what you've got in a lot of modern day horrors, which has been going on since the 70s, and with the Hammer horrors to the 80s with the Hammer horrors and things like Nightmare on Elm Street, films with Jason in it, films with Freddy in it, films with Pinhead in it, to the 90s where we got slasher flicks. 90s and 2000s where we got films like slasher flicks. So, where a lot of the emphasis was on the gore, and a lot of the emphasis was on the outright blatant big monster in your face psycho killer with a big axe kind of job in your face. The Haunting's very different. There is no ghosts. You see not one spirit, but you hear them. And that's what makes The Haunting so good. All the special effects, right? Because of course, 1963, there's no fancy special effects in those days. There's no CGI. So all the special effects are done through camera work and lighting. Oh, and the sound effects and the sound score. The sound score is absolutely fantastic. So all the special effects that you see, all the hauntings that you see, which is the banging on the walls, the faces in the walls, the car moving of its own accord. It's all done through special effects. It's all done through lighting and camera work and things like that, to give you a very, very chilling experience. I'm trying to think who wrote the music for it, because the music plays a very big part in just how creepy the house can be, and I can't remember the guy's name. That's really bugging me. I can't remember the guy's name. Alright, then I'll research it and I'll probably put it in the information links. Which is where it's where the success of the film really does stand, is in the way that the special effects that creep you out, because it's all music. Now, the house itself, Hill House, of course, isn't a real house. It was actually a house in Stratford-upon-Avon. A house in Stratford-upon-Avon called Ettington Hall, which is now the Ettington Park Hotel. Still in Stratford-upon-Avon. Stratford-upon-Avon isn't that far from me, actually. It's probably only about 40 minutes drive, if that, from where I am in Birmingham. And for those of you who are watching this who wouldn't know Stratford-upon-Avon, it's much more hugely claimed to fame. It is the hometown of William Shakespeare. And it was filmed in England, despite the fact that it's supposed to be New England, but it's filmed in England. And it was very much a success. Very, very much a success. I mean, it didn't have it only had a mediocre budget of $1.5 million. Now, for a blockbuster those days, that wouldn't hire your Tom Cruise. That wouldn't pay the fee of the main character these days. But 1.5 million back in 1963, well, 1962, which is when it actually started being made, was quite a fair bit. So it was never a huge production. It wasn't a massive production. I mean, would you consider it to be a low-budget flick? Don't know. I mean, low-budget flicks have to work. I mean, one of the most famous low-budget flicks of all times, of course, is going to be the Blair Witch Project, which, I don't know if that creeped anybody else out, but all it did to me was give me a flipping headache from watching a camera do this the whole time. Because that's all the bloody Blair Witch did for me. Okay, now, and the Ettington Hotel has actually been in the Shirley family for quite a long time. And the camera work they use, which they used to emphasise the stonework, they used infrared. So they shot with infrared onto black and white film, which really emphasised all the stonework and all the gargoyles and all the interior designing of the actual house itself. And it really is a superb film. Oh no, I didn't reveal the entire plot, because I've just remembered a very central point of it. But never mind. It is an absolutely superb film. The film itself has consistently made the top 20 best horror films list. In 1999, it got a remake with Liam Neeson and Catherine Zeta-Jones. Oh, and Owen Wilson. It's one of Owen Wilson's earlier films. I forget who the fourth person was. And it has quite a lot of different deviation between the original film and the remake. One of the main things was they decided that they weren't going to use the nice little subtle bangings on the walls technique anymore. No, they were going to go for big uber special effects, like statues moving and wrought iron ceiling arches bending into demonic faces. And I remember watching it, and I really thought, this really, this really has just ruined the original make for it. But what do you expect? Most remakes tend to butcher the originals. So it did have. I mean, it's not a bad film. The remake's not a bad film, but it's certainly nothing great. But the original Haunting, the original Haunting is brilliant. It did make in the 100 Scariest Movie Moments that was released through Bravo, it made 18th. So, if you like your horrors, you will enjoy it. I mean, to give you some idea about how much I like this film and how persuasive I can be. Philly does not like to watch black and white films. She refuses. I think it's actually a very bad thing on her part that she refuses to watch any black and white film purely because it's in black and white. I actually made her watch this. So, and she said she enjoyed it. Whether she did or not, I don't know. But she said she enjoyed it. So there we go. It is an if you know if you like your horror to be full on violence, then you're not going to like this, because there's no ghosts. You know, there's no slaughterings. You know, there's no boobies. You know, there's barely a drop of blood in the entire film, and even then you can argue that there actually isn't any blood. I mean, I think there's one scene where it looks like someone's bleeding on the throat, but it might just be the choker she's wearing. I don't know. I mean, there's no blood. I mean, you know, 80s films, and even carrying on towards to modern day, it's got to have guts, gore, and tits in order for it to work. This has none of that, and it works very well. Can't think of anything else to say on this film apart from the fact I do recommend it. Now, I picked this up for £3 on eBay. So if you fancy checking it out, or even if you can find it in other means, I mean, for all I know, it could be on YouTube. Then definitely, I would highly recommend this film. It is in black and white, and there's no superb special effects. You know, there's no CGI. You know, I mean, I'm sure there's a few people that are sat there thinking, they made films without CGI? How did that work? But anyway, definitely worth checking out. Highly recommend it. But for now, this is Silverbolt with The Haunting, signing off, saying au revoir, adios, a